Speed. Man's need for it is undeniable. He expresses it in the sky with thrusting jet aircraft, on the ground with screaming race cars, on water with thundering hydroplanes and magnificent sailboats. He uses power from explosive fuels, power from the wind, power from his own muscles, whatever it takes to attain the objective. That ability to go so fast that the wind literally splits before him. In these sports of raw speed, we see man's uncanny ability to become one with a machine. The art of using a tool to perfection. Competition. It can bring out the best in us, but it also shows no mercy. For in competition, there are only winners and losers. And entering the 1990s, the American automakers were not winning. Some even said they could no longer compete. With their market fast slipping away, they needed a winner. Join us now for an inside look as a team of American engineers, along with a world champion driver, race the clock to come up with that winner and regain the competitive edge. Indianapolis, the early 1960s. For over 2 decades, the American-built front-engine roadsters have been undisputed kings of the speedway, virtually invulnerable to the challenge of international competition. Then suddenly, innovative new imports arrived from abroad, rear-engine race cars that enjoyed a competitive edge over their American counterparts. At first, the establishment hoped this new challenge would simply go away, but it wouldn't. To stay competitive, the American racing teams had to react quickly, or soon become as obsolete as their beloved roadsters. Detroit today, the American automobile industry faces a similar crisis. Car and Driver editor Patrick Bedard explains.
Detroit was the best car maker in the world after World War II. Through the late 40s, 50s, 60s, they were unmatched in the products they built and in their efficiency.
Have you tried DeSoto's new triple-range push-button driving? In DeSoto for 57, you just touch a button and go. Split-second getaway in the most exciting car in the world today. And in DeSoto for 57, you get TorqueFlite automatic transmission, the smoothest, most responsive transmission ever made. See and drive the 1957 DeSoto with triple-speed push-button driving. It's the most exciting car in the world today.
Success always leads ultimately to downfall, because when you get successful, you institutionalize the method that made you successful.
When you establish a concept of building a car, and you stay on that concept for years and years and years, and suddenly you start get outdated, start get an old concept. Why? Because people outside the States, in Europe, in Japan, in different countries, are building cars on a different concept.
The car business in the U.S. changed once there got to be global competition, because then there wasn't just the standard Detroit idea of what a car should be. Who could make the best vinyl roof, for example? They opened up the playing field, so to speak, to a lot of new ideas. Once the playing field got opened up, there's no going back to who does the best vinyl roof. Now you have to do the best car.
Well, we used to do that. We used to produce the most reliable pieces of transportation that costed next to nothing to operate. And we lost sight of that for a few years, and the Japanese ate our lunch.
For a long time, we were very myopic in Detroit. We're kind of pull the covers over your head and figure out that maybe the rest of the world will go away. To the old kind of Detroit think, you went the cheapest way you could until you proved that it wouldn't work.
Corporations in this area were run by bean counters. And at the end of the 80s, you see more plant closings and you see loss of market share. And nobody likes to see their neighbors out of work.
Everybody likes to win, nobody likes to lose. But when you lose, you have to know how to recover again. And sometimes the way to recover is difficult, it's tough. But that's what's is the challenge of life. And I think that's same as happened here in Detroit.
Actually, it's one of the marvels of our free enterprise system. You have to be competitive or you fail. There's no mercy. And it enforces a renewal that keeps our system very competitive.
In the late 1980s, no car maker appeared in greater need of renewal than Chrysler. Their reputation for engineering innovation was slipping, and sales of their aging K car, the car that had saved the company a decade earlier, were slumping in the face of an onslaught of new Japanese competition.
Perhaps in the late 70s, early 80s, we could have ignored the Japanese threat for a while and pretended that it wasn't there. But in reality, we in the product development community had to look at vehicles to say, are we competitive in the way we are developing vehicles? And it became very clear with some of the introduction of their new products that we were not competitive and that we had to get our head out of the sand, get the rose-colored glasses off, and stare at what we were doing and say, we've got to equal them on a productivity standpoint. And it's no question that it said, you're going to have to engineer cars differently than we've been engineering cars. We were going to have to change.
It became clear by 88 and 89 that Chrysler, in order to pull itself out, would have to make a significant new car, and money was required to do that. Chrysler Corporation not only had to build a car that people wanted to buy, but they had to do it quickly enough so that the money would still last in the treasury. It was always the question, can it be done?
I think it was either do this or die. Maybe that's a far-reaching statement that I can't, I'm certainly not in a high enough position in that company to say that. But I think our executives knew that Chrysler had to do something dramatic to survive.
We didn't need to be selling Chryslers to 60-year-old guys all the time. We needed something fresh out there that was going to turn the 30-year-old's head when it goes down the road.
We could not afford to come in with a line of products that were Me Too products. These had to break away, break new ground, and do something entirely different.
When the meter is ticking loudly enough, and when the treasury reserves are small enough, it really does focus the mind. You have to do it right. There's only one more chance. There's LH.
Next, the race begins. In the competition for supremacy in today's international automotive marketplace, one team is clearly running on a fast track, the team from Japan. Some say they don't play fair, but most experts feel their success comes from an uncanny ability to react quickly to the marketplace, with innovative products that have gained a reputation for quality, handling, performance, and efficiency.
So, if an automaker wanted to get competitive in this market, what should he do? Probably should make quality cars that handle well, have good performance, efficiency, room inside. Doesn't sound that hard, but if you're a car maker that for years and years and years had been winging it with vinyl roofs and phony wire wheel covers, that's a pretty radical step.
Chrysler took that radical step in January 1989 and committed $1.5 billion to a program to create an entirely new line of cars. Cars designed to meet international competition head-on. One of those cars, the Eagle Vision. The code name for the project, LH. As in any competition, the first step was to scout the opposition. What gives Team Japan its competitive edge? Project leader Glenn Gardner gives his scouting report.
I worked 4 years with the Japanese, and my Japanese partners used to say to me, Gardner-san, you work too hard. That's for younger people. Why do you work so hard? The Japanese don't work any harder than we do. They work differently, but they don't work harder. The Japanese, I think, do a better job of saying, I don't know what those Americans want to buy. I'm not quite sure, but I better listen to them. I found in working with the Japanese, they do a better job of planning and digesting the plan before they attempt to execute. And then, when you finally got all the ideas together,
draw a consensus on the ones that are best in everybody's judgment, and then execute.
To become more competitive, Chrysler scrapped its old bureaucracy and created a brand new team, placing the responsibility for the success of the project squarely on the shoulders of the engineers.
The engineers, when they were tossed the ball, told that they had to make a play that would save the corporation. I'm sure we're quite comfortable with that because ultimately they believe in the product, and they are the only ones to have a skill in making a competitive product. You know, it's finally put me in, coach, and they got put in.
And all of the engineers said, great, we're trained to do that. We want to do that. We're excited about being able to do that. Gosh, why didn't you ask us before? Well, in reality, I think we always did ask them. But with the functional organization being so narrow, by the time you got it up to the top, many of the lower level people didn't feel that their ideas were really being considered.
For aerodynamics, it was like spitting in the wind. We would suggest, and we would be ignored.
What we are doing is saying, wait a minute, there's a lot of good ideas. We know the concept. Let every interface participate in the planning process. Let them contribute their ideas.
It's scary, but you were given freedom. You knew, come on, guys, we really want to see something here. We've got to let it all out. Sketch what you want to sketch. Do your thing, and let's make this exciting and something that we can sell management.
In this case, management's attitude was, here's the money, go off and do it right. And that's exactly what we did. We didn't have the, from past times, the scrutiny of why you're doing this and the second guessing and all that stuff. We really let the motorheads go off and do what they wanted to do, which was a lot of fun.
I think the toughest thing was getting people to trust each other. And basically what we've done is we've taken those same people that didn't trust each other, we have thrust them into a program almost run like an individual business, and we've thrust all of those people in one building.
That building was a crowded one-story skunk works known as Featherstone, where the team had little choice but to work side by side.
We see each other every day. We have coffee together. We establish individual personal relationships with those people that we didn't used to trust.
When you had a question or you wanted to ask somebody, hey, could you consider doing this another way? You just walked over to their desk and said, what do you think? And those kind of conversations are not anywhere near as confrontational.
It did galvanize them, and it made various departments put aside petty differences and old bureaucratic schemes and work together to build a car. Actually, I think it was and is now quite an exciting place to work.
Work had barely begun on the project when the team faced its first crisis. The stylists had come up with a radical new design that looked good on paper, a design intended to capitalize on the attributes that had made minivans so popular.
People loved the 360-degree visibility. They loved the large doors on the side for easy access, and they particularly liked the low cowl and the over-the-road command feeling that gives you. So we tried to build all of those attributes into what we now call the cab-forward architecture.
Our first reaction to the hoods and the cab-forward look and the low hood was, you guys are out of your mind. There's no way we're going to deliver the kind of output that the car wants and the customer wants. There's no place to put the manifolds. There's no place to put the fuel injection. There's no place to put the motor.
In the old days, we would have probably just been told, that's it, you're not going to do it. You're not going to get what you want. And then consequently, it would have showed it that way.
So the engine guy says, well, okay, I understand the reason for the low hood. It's not just a pretty picture. It is necessary to meet all of the goals, and therefore I will tune my engine to fit within an environment.
They literally had to reinvent the heater air conditioning systems, the front-end cooling systems, and everything that is packaged under that very abbreviated hood that you're seeing.
And as you can see, if you look carefully at this hardware, it is an extremely compact, extremely space-effective design that, in the end of the day, represented no compromise in performance or fuel economy or any of the things that the customer expects from his power plant, and gave Tom Gale's guys and the design members of the team that swoopy hood that they love. And I got to admit, it's a great looking piece.
The engine guys are now more proud of their engine because they've been able to meet an outstanding engine performance criteria with a very difficult environment, which in the past they would have resisted.
That's how we did it, through working together and really understanding what each other was trying to accomplish, as opposed to what was characteristic when I started in this business 20 years ago, was kind of an adversary relationship. Those guys want this, we're not going to give it to them. Replaced with, well, now I understand what they're trying to do, and they understand what we're trying to do. Let's work together.
With the team all in agreement on the design, the engineers now had to race the clock to bring their design to market before competition got wind of it. To maintain secrecy, they created a fleet of carefully disguised test vehicles known as mules. Under their homely bodywork was concealed the suspension and drivetrain for Chrysler's hope for the future. A future some in the automotive press were now beginning to question.
I recall being at a presentation by Mr. Lutz in the summer of '90, where he told us how much money was going to be spent on the LH car, and then, in order to dispel any doubts that Chrysler could stay alive long enough to do this car, he started talking about where those funds would come from. And boy, as the months went by, it was real close, time after time after time.
Next, the race continues. Emerson Fittipaldi tests the first Eagle Vision prototype. October 1990. Emerson Fittipaldi arrives in Detroit for his first test drive of a prototype Eagle Vision.
Well, we told the team up front that we had to stand the critique of outside experts. And we said, look, we want a world-class suspension. We want the vehicle, all of us on the team agreed, we want the vehicle to handle in a world-class manner. We want it to be the best of the best. And where else can we get a judgment of the best except getting one of the best to drive the damn thing and tell us, in fact, it does meet that criteria.
People don't realize how much someone like myself that loves cars. I mean, all my life I've been inside racing cars and passenger cars. I want to be engineer, a car engineer. Because of my racing activities, I stopped, but I was on the way to be a car engineer when I stopped. And on the same time, when I was going to school in Brazil, I was going to a design school too. I was on a technical design school. And I stopped both when I be a professional racing driver. But I love it. I mean, I love every detail.
Now, were we nervous? You betcha. First time he drove the car, all of us were kind of shaking and twisting and sweating a little bit because we thought we had done the job, but you were standing the test. Now we had a pro.
But possibly you just need a little more stiffness in the rear in this car, as roll stiffness to help with this.
The balance.
The balance, yeah.
We've got 95 more weeks to go.
That's great.
It's nice that we don't have to worry too much about starting with a bad suspension. We had great suspension to start with. So
and hitting the undulations, you don't feel any bump steering on the car too. And that's, very safe. Many people think a racing driver wants to get on a passenger car and drive banzai. 180 miles per hour on the streets, squeezing the wheels around the corners. That's not the case. It's exactly the opposite. Being a racing driver, what I want from a street car is that the car that sure has a nice look, sportive type of look, modern car, but very nice comfort, very quiet. And if you need to do a high performance driving, it's there available for you.
And Emerson did a fabulous job. We were proud to have the guy there.
He's made some suggestions on what we might do, but basically I think he has concurred pretty much with what we've done, and I think he's pretty happy with the product.
I come here and I realize when I'm testing a car like this, how many hours of hard work, how much effort, how much sweating behind that car before I was driving the car. There was so many different people working that project.
I would say this is the first time that I've done what I'll call a real production motor. There are engines and there are motors. Engines are the kind of things that push most of the hardware around, and motors are the things that you really like. Most of the race engines are motors.
This particular suspension is Chrysler's first independent rear suspension. And again, like I said, they let the engineers decide what suspension we wanted to put on the car. And we felt very strongly that this type of suspension was required to meet the handling and the ride and handling images of the car.
But I had seen a lot of promises before that we were going to take and build a world-class car, and every time it came out to be another K car. Well, this is the first real car that we've put together that isn't a K car, and it isn't done anything like a K car.
When I started testing the car, I could feel immediately that the product was there, the result was there.
June 1991. With pilot production scheduled to begin in less than a year, Emerson is back on the test track with an updated Vision prototype.
I could see from the first time I drove the car up to now, the improvements that have been made. And then I really appreciate to be part of that. It makes a big difference, like a racing car. If the team spirit's there to perform, to work together, the result will be there. And that's what the team of the Vision has done. I mean, they had the time, they had the expertise, they had the facilities to do it. They have the technology to do it. American car manufacturers, they have to compete against, they have to recover. And I can see in Chrysler that's happened now. And I think that's the goal.
Next, the public debut. January 1992. The Eagle Vision makes its first public appearance at the Detroit Auto Show as a nervous team of engineers await the reviews. ESPN's Bill Adam was there.
Here at the Detroit Auto Show, it's the official debut of the new Eagle Vision. And many automotive experts feel that the future of Chrysler Corporation depends on the success of this car.
The car is a hit. The same journalists who had been doubting the company's future were now saying Chrysler is back.
Proudest day in my 33-year career was to go to the auto show and hear my contemporaries, people that I highly respect from other companies and suppliers, come in and say, you guys did a good job. I will remember it till the day I die.
June 1992. The first Eagle Vision rolls off the pilot assembly line, right on schedule. The team had met their deadline. Has America really regained its competitive edge and found a better way to build cars? Chrysler obviously thinks so, and has bet another $1 billion on a new technology center where future teams can all work together under one roof. But the ultimate test will come in the marketplace, for here you have no choice. You must have the competitive edge.
People say that in America, the cars cannot build as good as in Japan, as good as in Europe, and I think this is going to be proven against that.
We learned how to live from crisis to crisis and come out on top. And we're going to come out on top in this one as well.
We can do it in America. Every one of our suppliers can do it. There's no reason that our suppliers cannot match Japanese suppliers. There's no reason we cannot match Japanese car manufacturers.
All it takes is management with the right vision, and Detroit and America will be extremely competitive.